This is my first time ever playing a crazy Tube Circuits pedal, and what a fabulous place to start. This is Mirage, a brand new dual reverb pedal that's seriously inspiring. Okay, so the headlines. Dual reverb engines with identical controls on both sides, 16 algorithms per side, ranging from vintage classics to surreal ambient dreamscapes, which includes a model of the longest man-made reverb in the world. More on that in a sec, it's crazy. You can stack, split, or even insert pedals in between the two reverb engines. It includes expression control and onboard ramping functions, as well as different stereo routing options, all in a pedalboard friendly format with no menu diving. And that is one of the most impressive things about it. Everything you see is on the top of the pedal. Kind of sounds like the perfect reverb pedal on paper, but paper doesn't matter if it doesn't sound good. So let's hear the thing. Okay, let's touch on the algorithms first. There's two banks of algorithms, one more traditional and one more ambient. The outer bank on the voicing switch are the more classic and natural sounds. So we have all the usual suspects here: a plate, cathedral, hall, room, spring, springier, which is a bigger take on the spring, inching down, which is based on that legendary Scottish oil tank with the longest reverb ever recorded, and that happens to also be my favourite sound in the pedal. And then finally a gated algorithm, which is going to get you those sort of 80s cut-off reverb sounds. Personally, I don't think there's a weak one of the bunch here. Each mode can be dialed in subtly or pushed into massive expansive spaces. The inner bank on the voicing switch are where things get a little more experimental and ambient. Starting off, we have a few different types of shimmer reverb. We have an up shimmer, a down shimmer, a dual shimmer, which crossfades between an octave up and an octave down, a pitch shimmer, which allows you to tune that pitch of the shimmer so you could have a fifth up or a third down or whatever harmony you want to do. There's a repeater algorithm, which is like different, it's basically a delay that smears the echoes together into a really cool reverb. One of my favorites in here. There's a moduverb, a classic reverb with a modulation on it. A frozen hall, which is like the normal hall algorithm, apart from when you crank it up to the max, it freezes indefinitely. And then finally, in a similar vein, infinite, which captures a loop of the reverb trails and freezes them and plays it back forever. There's some really unique sounds in that inner bank of algorithms. I'll be honest, I don't usually love shimmer reverbs, so 4 of those are probably never going to be used for me, but repeater and the moduverb, those are so lush and they can stay around. I love them. It's basically a pedal of 2 halves. You have controls for your R2 and controls for your R1, reverb 1 and reverb 2. And each side has the same controls, the same 4 simple controls. We have volume and mix, self-explanatory, but volume does have the capability to boost a little bit as well if you want. Swell usually controls the decay or the size of the reverb, but also does things like drive, gate or freeze, threshold, depending on the algorithm. The excite knob usually controls things like tone or brightness, but again can also handle other things like octave levels or the modulation for the moduverb. And that's kind of it. No menus, no shift layer. The only shift button is for accessing the 2 different banks of reverb, but it's all on the front. No holding this down, twisting that knob, turning around 3 times and spitting on the floor. It's all simple right there on the front. Just intuitive controls that get you great sounds fast. I love this kind of design in a reverb, especially as big, expansive reverb pedals are often the most complicated on the market, and the Mirage is a refreshingly direct take on that. Now, Now let's talk routing, because it's arguably the coolest thing about the Mirage. So far we've been hearing the Mirage in mono, because that is my personal preference when it comes to guitar tone. I like things straight down the middle, one signal. But when you start to use some of the stereo options with this pedal, it opens a lot of creative doors. First of all, in mono, the two reverbs run in series to each other. So R1 into R2, meaning that they're feeding each other. You can get them to expand and I don't know, freak each other out a little bit. But in stereo mode, the two engines split, meaning that R1 goes left and R2 goes right. This is a brilliant way of creating a different kind of stereo image. You could send a spring reverb to one amp and a shimmer to the other, or a frozen hall soundscape to the left and the oil tank to the right. Or even more simply, just two slightly different versions of the same reverb algorithm to create a sound that is maybe a little bit wider or a bit more movement in it. Alternatively, you can also make full use of both ins and outs to run two mono signals side by side. Great for two synths, for example, or even running an electric and acoustic guitar through the same reverb pedal without them affecting each other. Let's set up a little stereo rig within a plugin, I think, and we'll see how wide we can get this pedal to sound. So stereo's cool, stereo's really cool in fact, but my favourite use of this pedal is using the send and return effects loop between the two reverb engines, meaning that you can basically drop any pedal you like in between the two, in between R1 and R2. So I could potentially run reverb into fuzz and then into another reverb. Or you could go wild and run your whole pedal board basically in the loop of the pedal, meaning you have a pre-chain reverb and a post-chain reverb. And that's not a traditional use for reverb at all, but sometimes it's fun to break the rules, and that's where you can start creating your own sounds and get really creative. ton more to explore here with the Mirage when it comes to expression and onboard ramping, but these, what we've covered today, are just my favourite ways of using it. And I think what's almost most impressive about the Mirage is that it feels like a fully featured reverb workstation without feeling like a workstation. How they've managed to create that sense of depth with the reverbs, without submenus, without shift layers, just with 4 simple controls, is really, really cool, and makes this pedal so suited to live work and quickly grabbing great reverb tones. The algorithms are lush and creative, the control layout is fast, and the routing makes this one of the most flexible reverbs I've tried. I'm definitely going to be running this on future pedalboard builds for a while. I've really enjoyed getting to know it, and I'll be adding crazy tube circuits to my growing list of fabulous Greek pedal builders.